It doesn't look like there's anybody in here, so it's not a big deal. Okay. Well, I'll just go ahead without everybody. I hope nobody minds. I'm gonna have a cigarette. Um, for those of you that don't know, I'm Chris. Um, it's a pleasure to meet you. This is the first time I've ever gone live, so bear with me. I don't really know what I'm doing, and I'm kind of camera shy. So, all of that being said, the thumbnail that I uploaded that went with this, well, there, I've got it right in front of me, right here. That, that's what I'm talking about here. Okay, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about this image pretty much the entire time. So, I'm going to tell you a little story. And our story starts with absolutely nothing. So, just imagine that there's nothing, no air, no gravity, no blackness of space, no time, no you, nothing at all. Complete emptiness, no universe. Now, in that nothing, there's nothing. But suddenly, in order for that nothing to have any meaning, we recognize that something has to be aware of that nothing. Something has to observe that nothing and witness it. Something has to notice that there is nothing there and acknowledge it. Otherwise, the nothing has no meaning at all. So consciousness arises because of the necessary, not the necessary, because of the need for meaning. Consciousness arises because nothingness creates a need for meaning. And once consciousness arises, consciousness creates all different kinds of needs. So if you imagine this consciousness, it's it's easy to imagine it like a ball, but for now, before we even imagine it like a ball, let's first imagine it like a field, because that's what it really is. Consciousness is a field. Um, Hold on, I'm gonna have a cigarette. My apologies if you don't smoke. I do. Okay, so consciousness is a field. It is everywhere, all the time. Um, it underlies everything. You could think of it as space, but it's kind of underneath space, if that makes any sense. It's not really space itself, because space is one half of space time. Space and time are two halves of one whole. That's a whole other topic for a whole other time. I won't even get into that right now. Okay, so consciousness is everywhere. Okay, consciousness has to have something to be conscious of besides that nothing. That nothing is really not satisfying at all to consciousness. And if you want to understand what that's like, just imagine yourself trapped in that nothingness forever and you can't get out. There's nothing to do. You don't even have a body. All you have is your mind. That's it. This is why consciousness has to have something, because that's very uncomfortable. It's not at all pleasant. It's not something that you want to experience at all. So, this is why consciousness needs the illusion. That's the first lesson, I suppose, is that consciousness needs the illusion of reality. It it really does. I mean, unless unless you're a heavy unless you're heavy into meditation, consciousness needs it needs a world. It needs something to observe, something to interact with. Unless you're extremely secluded and you've lived a monastic type life, then you could probably get away without it. But most people have a need for that. They need the input of that sensory data. Anyhow, you got consciousness. Let's now imagine it as a ball because it's just the easiest way to picture it from here on out. Because if I tried to have you imagine it as a field, it would be very difficult to understand how all of this relates to each other. And that's the most important part. You'll notice when you're looking at this ball that it's got layers to it. There's an outer layer, and when you're looking at the outer layer, understand that you're looking at the entire ball, the whole, all of consciousness, um, every last bit of it. Consciousness is all there is right now in our imagination. All we're imagining is just consciousness and nothing else. So consciousness being a ball, my cat, consciousness being a ball in this instance, the whole thing we can call absolute consciousness. We can call the entire ball absolute consciousness or the all. You could call it the all. That's one of my favorite things to call it. Terminology is important, so I'll try to define things as we go. Uh, the next thing consciousness needs is some way to differentiate. It needs more complexity. Simple nothingness is not satisfying, as we already covered. So it needs to create some complexity um, within itself because it doesn't have any external world that it can create within. It can't create anything. All it can do is work with what it already is. It can work within itself. That's how consciousness operates. It can only operate within itself. It can never actually touch the void or the emptiness outside. It can only ever work with what's inside its own walls. Whatever that is, that's all consciousness has. But that's not all consciousness has because consciousness has a lot of tricks up its sleeve, as I'm about to discuss. So, the next thing consciousness does is it fractures itself. Or if you want to think of it like this, I kind of think of it like imagine a strainer, like that you would put spaghetti noodles in, you know, uh, or Play-Doh, the little no, never mind. Forget the strainer idea. Anyway, just imagine that there's a filter, okay? Consciousness creates a filter and it extrudes itself inward through this filter. It pushes itself through the filter and it forces itself to take on individual form. It's they're not the individual is not separate from consciousness. They are still I mean everything that's happening is in consciousness. So nothing can ever be separate. So I just want to get that clear. Everything is inside consciousness. There is no outside of consciousness. Um, so it individuates. Now, don't think of that like it puts on a personality and it puts on a body because that's not really how it works. Consciousness individuates in the sense that it breaks itself off into fractals. Um, Imagine a smaller ball, but it's inside the original ball, okay? But it's an exact duplicate of the first ball. Um, but the awareness, That's the key point. Okay, when consciousness is the entire ball, when we're talking about the entire ball, the point of awareness that we're okay, think of it like your mind's eye. When you're imagining a ball, your mind's eye is the point of awareness. It is the eyeball, the observer, that is looking at the entire scene. In your case, it's you. You would be that point of awareness. But if we're talking about imagining your point of awareness as the entire ball of consciousness, then what we're saying is that your awareness would, your sense of you, your sense of self would encompass all that was, everything that exists within consciousness. You would be the entirety of it. Right? Yeah. So that's the whole, that's the ball. That is consciousness. Consciousness extrudes itself inward and creates individuals by fracturing itself and creating multiple points of awareness. So each time it fractures itself, it creates a fractal, which is a whole new point of awareness. And now there's a new sense of me. There's still the consciousness still has its own sense of me, and that's still your sense of me. But now you're inside yourself, and now you're you, and not just consciousness. So your point of awareness is now you're no longer aware of the full ball. All you're aware of is just you inside the ball. Okay. Now everything else inside this ball, everything else is co-created reality, which is to say that because there's nothing to build reality out of here, all we have is consciousness. All we have is consciousness that has been individuated within itself in a more complex manner. So there's more numbers of individuated points of awareness within the overall construct of consciousness. Where was I going? Okay. All of these awarenesses create basically a universe around them. Everywhere you look, when you look out, you are creating, because your eyes, if they work, when you look out, your eyes have to see something. If there's something to be seen, your eyes have to see it. If there's light to see it, if it's possible to see it, your eyes have to see it. That's what you expect. You know that in your mind, that there's no reason why your eyes wouldn't see something if it was there. Right? We'll get to more of that later, and we'll talk more deeply about that. But understanding this, understanding that you live inside your mind. Let me set my computer down. Okay. So we've talked about that. Now let's talk a little more deeply about what all of it means. What does it all mean? Let's talk about what we can prove. Is there such thing as an objective reality outside of myself that I can prove exists? Can I prove that there's anything outside of myself? And the answer to that is no, I can't. I can't prove that there's anything outside of myself. And the reason I can't is because what I'm thinking is my hand grabbing my drink, which is Rockstar, by the way, not a sponsor, but I do like Rockstar. Anyway, I think I'm grabbing my drink, right? But I'm not actually grabbing my drink. The only thing I'm actually aware of is a mental image that I have that I've projected outside of myself. And I can prove that to you because my hands, they don't know how to feel. They can't feel a rock star can. My brain does that. My hand can only grip the rock star can and send sensory information back to my brain, right? My hand isn't doing any feeling. It's not deciding what it is that it's holding. I'm doing that. I'm the one giving the label to this and deciding that because it says Rockstar, this must be a Rockstar can. My eyes are giving me the data about it. My hand is giving me the data about it. My ears could give me the data about it. My nose can give me the data about it. And of course, anything that can sense can give you data about it. You can get sensory data about it. But the picture that you're forming is in your mind. All of that sensory data is going into your mind. You're not actually outside. You're not actually touching anything. You're just touching the world inside your mind that your mind has built from all of the sensory data that came in. You have to have a mental model in your mind that you can work with all that sensory data. And so it all comes in. You don't get all that sensory data separately. You get it all together as one seemingly whole experience. But it's actually a bunch of separate sensory data that your brain has put together into one virtual experience. It's no different than dreaming. It's absolutely no different than dreaming. So you're never actually outside of your head. Um, we've got all this information about the world outside of us, but we can't really be certain that it's there. None of the data about the world outside of us actually has to be coming from the world outside of us. Nothing says that we actually have to have any senses. Our brains are more than capable of filling all that in and making all that up. It happens every night when you go to sleep. Every single night when you go to sleep and you dream, your mind is filling in all the blanks. It's creating an entire universe for you just because you're asleep and there's nothing else to be aware of. Consciousness needs to be aware of something. So we have this illusion of the world around us, but there's actually no world outside of us. There is no real world. There's all of this that we interact with, and it seems real enough, and it's okay to work with it like it's real and to treat it like it's real, but it's good to understand how it actually functions. Everything that you're seeing is just when you imagine. When you close your eyes and you imagine something, you can see an image in your mind, right? That's what all of this is. Everything around you is an image in your mind. It's a three-dimensional image. It's a three-dimensional image with time and depth and everything. But it's not actually outside of you. There's no way to verify that there is any external world. You can't prove it. And the reason you can't prove it, like I just said, is because of your senses. So if you can't prove there's any world outside of yourself, but you know that there's a world going on in your head, you know that your mind is generating a world and that other people's minds are generating a world that also agrees to some degree with the world that your mind is generating. So, I mean, everybody's getting along and everybody agrees that, okay, so this is our narrative. This is what we all believe about the world around us. And we all agree on it. If people don't agree on it, we think they're crazy. We think they're a conspiracy theorist, or we think they're stupid, or we think that they're hallucinating, or they're just they don't understand, you know. Uh, but the co-created reality that we all share isn't actually as it doesn't even exist. We all have our own individual reality, and the parts that agree with each other and the parts that we experience together, um, we assume are actually external to us, but they're not. Every person is a reality generator. Without us, there is no reality. If there is nobody around to see something or to interact with it, there is nothing there to interact with. There's only consciousness. It's either conscious or unconscious. You're either aware or unaware, but everything is consciousness. There is nothing but consciousness. So either something exists within the awareness of consciousness or something exists within the unawareness of consciousness. But everything that exists only within consciousness. There is no outside. There's no real world. The real world that we have, the co-created reality, is literally just a sandbox. It's a shared sandbox that we can all play in, and hopefully all get along in, and learn something about ourselves. Because ultimately, when you understand that all consciousness is the same root consciousness, that it individuated itself down into smaller versions of itself, which is you and I and everyone else. But actually, that same consciousness that made all of us, we're still inside of it. We make it up. We are the parts of it, and we are still one with it. We never separated from it. So we are all that same larger consciousness at the same time, even though we're only aware through the eyes of our individuated being right now, and we only potentially identify as this individual. Um, but there's more. There's more than just the individual. You can identify as more. You can become more, and you can access more because reality is generated by consciousness through identity. You have a lot of power when you understand this model and how it relates to you and what you can do once you begin to understand and believe that things are the way they are and why they are the way they are. I let my cigarette go out. Anyway, so I labeled void on the thing, but don't get caught up in that because there's really nothing there. Void doesn't exist. You can name nothingness, but it doesn't actually exist. It's not there. There is no void. There is only consciousness. That's all that there is, and everything that exists is within it. So that's that. I don't know what else to tell you about that for now, other than oh, that's right. Questions. I forgot. Sorry, I'm not very good at this. Like I said, this is my first live stream, so give me 1 second. I got questions here because I know people are gonna have questions. So okay, okay. I asked ChatGPT to generate some questions for me, like if it was an audience person, like one of you or somebody watching this video later on. Um, One of the questions was, what do you think the void represents in this model? And it's like I just said, the void doesn't exist. The void is just something to contrast consciousness against so that you can understand it better. It helps you because empty space is something you're familiar with. It's something you understand. You can conceptualize it. Consciousness is the empty space. Um, The void is just where there isn't anything manifested. No time, no space, no nothing. Nothing is manifested. It's technically outside of consciousness, but there is no outside of consciousness. So anything that's outside of consciousness has no existence. And that's what the void is. It is unconsciousness. It is lack of existence. Okay, next question. Why might consciousness be placed at the outermost layer? Okay, and this goes back to what I said in the beginning. Consciousness isn't actually the outermost layer. It's a two-dimensional representation of what's supposed to be a three-dimensional figure. It's supposed to be a sphere, but consciousness is the entirety of the structure. Everything that's inside of that diagram is actually within consciousness. There is no distinction, no separation. Consciousness isn't outside, it's everywhere. All right. How does identity differ from individual in your own life? Okay. Identity and individual. Um, Individuation is the process that consciousness goes through to fragment itself into smaller fractals of itself, because that's what it does. It uses fractal diffusion, I believe, is what it uses to fragment itself. That's the basic process. Uh, it basically does what a cell does. It divides the same way a cell would divide, but we're not talking about a physical structure. So it's a conceptual structure. It's an actual structure, not a real structure. An actual structure has structure within the space of your mind. A real structure has structure within the space of the illusion that we generate, that we call reality. Um, Next question. Oh yeah, no, I didn't finish that yet. Okay. Wait, did I miss one? Oh, here we go. What does it mean for reality to be co-created rather than experienced alone? That's a good question. Co-created reality means that first and foremost, each of us generates our own reality. It's not something we generate consciously because we don't realize we are generating it. We're not taught that growing up. If we were, we would be so much more powerful. Um, but we're not taught that that's the way our minds work, and we're not taught that we are powerful. We are taught that imagining anything is not real, and that if it's in your mind, it's make believe. But that's not true. Um, that's not true at all. What's in your mind is just as real as what is outside of your mind, because there is nothing outside of your mind. Everything that you think, like I said, is outside of you is actually a mental image that your mind has generated based on sensory data so that you can operate within uh, an immersive reality, because you can't feel anything, because all your brain gets is sensory data, and then your brain reassembles all that sensory data into a three-dimensional or four-dimensional or five-dimensional or however many dimensions there are to it, but it's a perfect reproduction of reality, down to the fact that we can even put it under the microscope and find atoms if we want to. You know, uh, I'm gonna get lost here. Let me go ahead and move on to the next question. Okay. Oh no, no, no. Co-created. Okay. There are certain things about reality that we all agree on. I call this the narrative. It is whatever is mainstream. It's what we are all guided by the media, by the government, by religious institutions, by schools, by our peers, by elders, by law enforcement, by political parties by all different groups that try to keep us in line with a specific way of doing things. There's this idea of what is normal and what is acceptable and what is legal and what is allowed, uh, what is tolerable, what is unacceptable. There are all different kinds of examples here, but basically, we all work together on agreeing about what is real. Whatever we all agree on is what becomes our co created reality. Um, if we don't agree, and we don't all have to, but if there are people around who have a different idea about what's happening, then the majority of the other people around, things are probably going to be going the way that the majority of people are experiencing them, even though the other people are having a very different experience altogether, and they're all there together. It's just that these folks are seeing that whole thing and they're perceiving it differently. They're not perceiving it the same way that these people over here are. So I don't know if any of this makes sense. I wish there were some people in the live chat or something that could ask questions. That would help. I don't even know if I'm live right now or not. I don't see anything here. Certainly doesn't look like I'm live. Let me see. Am I live? I am live. Okay. There we go. Okay. Looks like there's at least one person watching. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Are there any questions? You guys can use the live chat if you're out there and you've got a question. Feel free to use the chat. Okay. All right. I've got the live chat up now, so at least I know what's going on. Okay. All right. What's the next step? Questions. That's right. Okay. The next question. Yeah, I think that answered that one. Can you think of a moment when your identity shifted but your consciousness remained constant? Yes, absolutely, I can. But I don't know if you're going to understand that or even believe me. I don't know if I'm ready to share that with you yet. Hold on. Let me look at the next one here. How do your individual choices affect the co-created reality we all share? That's an obvious one. I'm I'm not sure how to answer that. How do your individual choices affect the co-created reality we all share? Um, well, that should be pretty obvious, I would think. Uh, what choices you make are going to impact, to a degree, well, to whatever degree the people around you are aware, are paying attention, and put any value or stock in you and your actions. Uh, I don't like this question. I just really don't like this question at all. I don't see how it's relevant to what I'm talking about here. Yeah, I don't know about that. If the void is the origin, what compelled consciousness to emerge from it? The truth is, the void is not the origin. Consciousness is the origin. Time and space exist within consciousness. People exist within consciousness. What? You got something here? Mm. Oh, that'll be April 15th, 9 a.m. Central Time. I'll be leaving here at 9 a.m. on, I think it's a Tuesday. I think it's a Tuesday. Uh, what was the question I was asking here? Right. The void is not the origin. There actually is no void, like I said. There is nothing outside of consciousness. So just ignore the void on that image on the diagram that I made. There's not really a void. Everything is consciousness. Everything exists within consciousness. It is the only thing that's real. There is there is nothing but consciousness. Everything that exists temporarily within consciousness. Uh, it's an imaginary thing. Everything around you is imaginary. The universe is in the mind of what we would call God or the creator or source. Okay? Just like when we go to sleep at night, we are inside our minds in the dreams that our minds create. There are other people in our dreams that are created by our minds as well while we're sleeping. And sometimes they're actually real other people because other people can interact with us in our dreams. That's been tested out by the CIA. Actually, the CIA tested that out. It's in the new Gateway papers that were released. I don't know if anybody's read those or heard about them. The Gateway process documentation, all of that's in there. But yeah, that's totally a thing. Um, you can visit somebody in their dream and they can recall you two people can share the same dream, they can have the same dream. Dreams are real, they're not imagined. They are imagined, but their reality is also imagined is my point. There's there's no difference functionally between a dream and reality because your mind creates an entire universe that when you're asleep feels exactly like reality. You can't tell that it's not reality. I mean, if you happen to know that you're dreaming, perhaps, or if you don't have a very good imagination, perhaps, I don't know. I don't think it even matters how good your imagination is. I think we all have a pretty good or a pretty similar understanding of reality. I think we all I think we all have a similarly immersive reality. I think is the best way to put that. Okay, let me look at the next question Chat GPT had for me here. Could consciousness exist without an? Of course. Could consciousness exist without an individual or identity to express it? Of course it could. I mean, that's exactly how it exists. Consciousness always exists, it's eternal. It doesn't have a beginning or an end because time and space are creations, they are imaginings of consciousness. They happen within consciousness. The whole universe is happening within consciousness. Um, there's nothing outside of consciousness. Nothing. Consciousness is the absolute. It is the all. The all is mind, your mind, to be exact. Is co creation a responsibility? If so, who are we co creating with? Each other or something more? Both. There is something more. And it's possible when you die, it's possible, or through meditation, or sometimes through a dream, even. It's possible to shift your awareness out of your body and into a higher point. Like I talked earlier about points of awareness. Like you are a point of awareness. You're when you close your eyes and you imagine something, the image that you see in your mind, the mind that is seeing the image and generating the image, that is the same exact thing. Yeah, we are in. I forgot what I was saying. I got lost. I'm not good at talking on camera. I apologize. And I don't have any notes or anything. Let me look for the next question. I'll get better at this. Anyway, let me see what the next thing here is. I don't like these questions. Which layer do you feel most connected to right now? That doesn't even make sense. Consciousness is the entirety of it. There's no the layers are just for illustration. if you were to reverse the model, starting from reality back to the void, there is no void. What would that journey look like? Well, I imagine it would be a lot like dying. I imagine if you were to go backwards, your consciousness would move out of this reality. You would lose awareness of this reality. You would no longer be able to interact with it. You would have no sense that it existed at all, other than in your mind or your memory of it. Uh, I imagine there would be nothing in its place. Um, that would be going back to absolute consciousness. Absolute consciousness has that experience, um, because its point of awareness is at the point of the whole, the entirety of consciousness. It is aware of all of itself. Um, we are only aware of a part of consciousness. Um, yeah, because we're a focal point within consciousness rather than a focal point at the level of consciousness. I had a question here. Let me go back and see what happened here. Let me look and see. I dreamt my grandpa came to visit when I had my baby. I remembered telling him my mom had got rid of his clothes. He said he couldn't stay, so he didn't need them. When I woke, I could smell his scent. That's awesome. My mom passed away not that long ago. I think it was like maybe 3 years ago, and I'm in the house that I grew up in right now, and I in the kitchen I've ran into her like 3 times. I didn't see her, but one time she held me, she hugged me, and that brought me to tears. And then another time I could smell her perfume, and that brought me to tears. And then another time I could just hear her whispering in my ear and telling me that she was proud of me and that she loved me. And that made me feel good. So I mean, it was pretty awesome. I mean, I love my mom. She was my best friend in the whole wide world, and it really sucked when I lost her. But I don't feel like I lost her. I feel like her consciousness kind of like moved in with me somehow. Like, I don't know. I feel like she's always with me. Like she's somewhere behind my eyes, just hanging out. I need another cigarette. Okay, let me look for the next question here. What was the next question? Let me see if ChatGPT had anything good here. Mm, no, actually, it looks like that was the end of it. Yeah, that was the last question. Last thing. So, I mean, if there's anybody watching or if anybody has any questions, I mean, I'd be glad to answer them. Uh, Let me see if I can think of anything that people might ask. Um, why is reality the way it is? Well, to answer that, it's because the people in charge of reality, and there are people in charge of reality, of this co created reality that we share, those people that are in charge of that reality are just as real as you or I or anyone else. The world that we're all operating in is a projection within our shared consciousness. Um, but the people, all of the people, are absolutely real. Many of them are detached. Many of them are not present. Many of them are not in the game, really, so to speak. But they are still very much alive, and they still very much are real. Hold on 1 second. Let me look and see what I got here. They definitely are. Consciousness never ends. There is, Jennifer said, that's what I hope, that somehow they're still with us. And absolutely, you don't. you can't really lose somebody. Um, and there's even more to it than that I would really like to share with you. But I don't want to blow your minds yet, and I don't want to scare anybody away just yet. um, because some of the things that I'm going to share with you guys is really going to. Some people are going to be scared by it. It's there's nothing to be scared of though. It's just that it's different than what you've been taught. Um, it's different than what you've been taught, but it absolutely is more empowering than anything any of us were taught. I wasn't taught any of this. I learned all of this after I had a. This sounds so tacky to say. I I died. I had a I had an encounter with death, and after that, it changed my life, and it changed me, and it changed the way I understand reality, and it changed the way. That's why I'm sitting here now, with all of this information to even share with you in the first place, is because I learned all of this as a result of what happened to me in 2017. Um, I don't want to go too deep into that right now. I really don't. I'm just not ready to dive deep into that. But I had an encounter with death, and yeah, that's as deep as we'll go for now. I don't want to go any deeper than that just yet. But I made it to the other side, and I know what's on the other side of death. I know what is waiting for all of us after. There's the initial stage where your expectations will create something for you to encounter based based on what you really believe is going to be there. What you expect to happen when you die is what's going to initially happen until you are comfortable and you've accepted the fact, you've internalized the fact that you're dead. Once that happens, everything changes. Everything. Um, I don't think most people ever internalize that when they die. I don't think most people ever internalize it. I really don't. Um, I think a lot of people wander around until if they're not reborn, they just wander around mostly because they don't really know what to do. Most people don't know that they're. There's a lot of people that don't know that they're dead. A lot of people that just can't. They can't psychologically bring themselves to accept that. They can't. It's probably been staring a lot of entities in the face for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and they're still wandering around on the other, well, not on the other side. There really is no other side. It's right here. We're in the spirit realm right now. There is no physical world. The physical world doesn't exist. It's not real. Um, but I'm going to leave it at that. Uh, I'm going to wrap it up here. So April 15th, 9 a.m. I'm leaving here and I'm walking. It's 900 miles one way, 900 miles back, and I'm going to be live streaming the entire way. So be there. It'll be a lot of fun. We're going. The point of the live stream is to go and find somebody that I believe faked her death, just like she said in her book, and is living somewhere still young and vibrant and healthy under a different name. And if she actually did achieve immortality, I think everybody deserves to know. I think everybody should know, hey, this works. You can do it this way and live forever. I mean, if we find an immortal, we find an immortal. I mean, I just want to share what I can share with people, and I like a good adventure. And I think this is going to be a whole lot of adventure. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I look forward to it. Anyway, um, y'all take care. Thank you for coming, and I'll talk to you later.
Bye.